We always during the season, these Monday podcasts, I kind of call them Monday thoughts on Saturday's game, or Monday thoughts on Saturday's win when it's a win, or Monday thoughts on Saturday's loss when it's a loss. And I'm realizing I forgot to update the photos. We'll get some Pitt Louisville photos in for tomorrow's Morning Pitt. But here on the Monday edition of the Morning Pitt, we're looking back at Saturday's game, a 34-27 loss for Pitt to Louisville at Acrisure Stadium. Another wasted opportunity, another befuddling defeat, another loss to what very well might be in terms of just kind of overall roster talent. Probably an inferior opponent. And I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, we can haggle over whether Pitt's roster is better than Louisville's or whether Pitt's roster is good enough to have won that game or any of this stuff. And we can. I mean, it doesn't matter because ultimately they lost that game. And they lost that game for a lot of reasons. The blame goes all over the place. They had a couple screw-ups on special teams, a situation where there should have been a fair catch interference penalty. The flag was thrown. It was picked back up. But in reality, you didn't need to touch the ball at all. And then it's a moot issue, and Louisville downs the ball, and you get it. The other being a dropped fumble that ended up leading to, or dropped punt, that ended up being dropped by the punter. That ended up being a Louisville touchdown. So there were special teams gaffes. The defense, while I think there were certainly some areas where that unit needed to play better, they were probably good enough again. They only gave up 2 drives longer than 36 yards on Saturday. So it's not like Louisville was going up and down the field on them. They had 1 touchdown drive that I think was 3 yards. One was 25 and one was 30. Now, you got to get stops. You have to, hold them to field goals when you're putting in those tough, quick change situations. But, defense could have been better, was probably good enough. And then there's the offense. The unit that has become the bane of this team this year. The unit that has fallen short in both of its opportunities against Power 4 opponents. The unit that was, put up some gaudy numbers against Duquesne and Central Michigan. But, overall, I think there were probably some weaknesses there that you thought were going to improve and get worked out as the season went on. And now they haven't. And now they're in a situation where they've got some major decisions to make on the field and off the field. And that's probably what we'll talk about today. The big decisions that Pitt has to make, that Pat Narduzzi has to make about what is going to happen over the next 8 games, because he needs to approach the next 8 games with about as much pressure as you can have on a football game, because I think all that pressure might really exist. All right, let's have it. Some Monday thoughts on Saturday's game here on the Monday edition of the Morning Pitt, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. All right, this is going to be a really interesting week because we're going to spend this whole week talking about, at times we're going to talk about what Pitt needs to do to beat Boston College, but we're going to deal with this thing that sort of happens that we kind of deal with from time to time, particularly after a loss, where all the sort of minutia sometimes, like I put up an article yesterday breaking down the personnel that Pitt used on offense in that game against Louisville, who they played, how many snaps, what the production was, what the rotations looked like. I'll do one for defense again, today too. And it's not rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, but it is kind of like, man, it just feels like there are bigger issues at play. There are bigger issues at play than what was the tight end rotation or how did they do with the Delta defensive sub package on 3rd downs. It just feels like those are minor details that are not all that consequential. But there are a lot of consequential things to discuss. And that's the other side of, what'll be funny. So, how much time do we spend on some of those more minor things, specific sort of scouting things, in football-specific things, game-specific things? How much time do we spend on that? But then also, we don't want to go too far with the big picture, grand statement like, they need to do this or they need to make this change or they need to, coaching changes and all those different things, because it is still, 4 games into the season. This game against Boston College will be game 5. We're not even to the midpoint of the season yet. And this is not a rah-rah, they can turn it around and, when the whole bleeping thing, Jake Taylor type of thing, that I'm trying to say to you. What I'm saying is there's a lot of games left. A lot of things will happen. And I'm not going to go too far down the road of coaching changes or, staff changes they need to make in the offseason or things like that. I'm interested in what this team needs to do and can do right now, in this week between today and Saturday to have a better outcome on Saturday than they had 2 days ago. And a lot of that, is going to stem from conversations about what happened on Saturday. Because the reality is Pitt's offense is bad right now. I mean, in a really bad way. Jim sent me some numbers. Jim Hammett, he posted them on Panther-Lair.com. I think he tweeted them as well. Let me bring them up. In the last 9 games against Power 4 competition, Pitt is 2-7. Okay? In Pitt's final 9 games against Power 4 competition with Frank Cignetti as offensive coordinator in 2023, Pitt was 2-7. In the last 9 games against Power 4 competition with Cade Bell, Pitt has scored 19 offensive touchdowns. In the last 9 games with Frank Cignetti against Power 4 competition, Pitt scored 18 touchdowns, offensive touchdowns. Pitt's quarterbacks in the last 9 Power 4 games with Cade Bell have thrown 14 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. Pitt's quarterbacks in the last 9 games against Power 4 competition with Frank Cignetti threw 11 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Run game production under Bell in the last 9 against Power 4, 84.3 yards per game. Under Cignetti in the last 9 against Power 4, 88.1 yards per game. Total yards per game for Pitt's offense in the last 9 games against Power 4 competition under Cade Bell, 318 yards per game. Under Cignetti, 328. Like, it's not a mirror image, but it's not far off. 19 offensive touchdowns under Bell, 18 under Cignetti. Points per game under Bell, 22.7. Under Cignetti, 18.8. But Pitt has also had like 4 defensive scores in that stretch, so that's going to boost it. Pitt's, the quarterbacks under Bell in the last 9 games against Power 4 teams, 14 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Under Cignetti, 11 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Run game under Bell, 84.3. Under Cignetti, 88.1. Total offense under Bell, 318. Under Cignetti, 328. Like, you're getting Cignetti levels of production right now from Pitt's offense under Cade Bell, the guy who was hired to come in and outperform what Pitt's offense did under Frank Cignetti. And it's not better. It was supposed to get better, and it hasn't. And this is year 2. This isn't the first year. You're trying to figure out the offense, and everybody's sort of figuring it out and learning the offense and everything. And this is year 2. And it's Cignetti levels of bad. Eli Holstein has not been good this year. He's not been good. He's got 9 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. I think that's the number, right? Is it 9 and 5, 10 and 5? Let me bring up his stats. No, 11 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, because he threw 9 touchdowns in the first 3 games, and then he had 2 against Louisville, and then he had 5. His 5 interceptions. He had 1 in each of the first 3 games. He threw 2 against Louisville. Of his 5 interceptions, 3 of them have been. He's thrown them from inside the 20, and they've been picked off at or near the goal line, inside the 2 or in the end zone. And his other 2 interceptions, he just threw them straight to a linebacker. A linebacker who was standing between him and the receiver he was throwing it to. Like Rasheem Biles, when he had his interception against Louisville, kind of came flying across the field and jumped and made this amazing athletic play. Like the 2 linebackers who have intercepted Eli Holstein this season, the one for Central Michigan and the one for Louisville, like they weren't amazing athletic plays. The dude just stood there. And Holstein threw to a receiver who was on the other side of the linebacker, seemingly never even seeing the linebacker standing right between him and the receiver. Threw it right to him. And the one against Central Michigan, he was rolling out, so he's on the move, he's scrambling a little bit. The one on Saturday against Louisville wasn't even that. He just dropped back and threw it straight to the linebacker. And that's decision number 1 that has to be made, is what are you going to do about the quarterback position? Because Cole Gonzalez came in, and it's not like he was much better. He was 3 of 6 for 31 yards and an interception at the end of the game. And he hasn't, in his 1 pass against West Virginia, he overthrew a screen pass. He may know the offense, but he's not really running it very well in the limited opportunities that he's gotten. Then there's Mason Heinschel. We saw him once in the Central Michigan game, moved the offense down the field, scored a touchdown, looked pretty good. Are you ready to hand the keys to a true freshman at quarterback at a point where you've got a whole lot riding on these next 8 games and very, immediately and specifically this Boston College game? Are you ready to hand the keys to a true freshman quarterback? But then kind of along with that question is, do you have an option? You have to do something here. You have to figure it out. You don't want to overreact to when things are going bad, right? I think there's always like a concern of, wow, things are, you're down bad right now. You don't want to like overreact and completely upset the apple cart. Like if you believe in what you're doing, you stay the course and keep working at it and trust that things will turn out right. And I think there's something to be said for that. I think there's a lot of value in that. I think that's a calm, reasonable, measured response to a difficult or challenging situation. And that's good. But I don't know if this current situation merits a calm, reasonable, measured response. You have blown the last 2 games through a lot of mistakes. Like not necessarily getting outplayed. In some cases, not even getting outcoached. Like you have good things called, and you've just had some critical errors and critical mistakes and critical turnovers and just critical blown plays. And so when you have that, you say, well, maybe you can iron some of this out and steady the ship and right the course and all those other cliches about just getting back on track. But at the same time, I don't know if you have the kind of time to allow for those things to work themselves out. And this might be the case with the quarterback situation. There's a very good quarterback somewhere inside Eli Holstein. And every now and then we see it, where he's firing a moon ball to Blue Hicks, or he's on the run and, has the presence of mind to see Raphael Williams open downfield and drops the ball to him, like perfect throw to him on the run in a scramble situation. Like there's some really good things that Eli Holstein does. But boy, howdy, is he offsetting every one of those good things with at least 3 not good things, some of which are very bad, like interceptions in the end zone. He's had 2 in the end zone and another one that was inside the 2. Like bad missed passes like he had in the West Virginia game. Like you're getting far more bad than you're getting good. And so, in one respect, if your team was good enough and you were overcoming these errors and you were getting out of these games with wins, if they were sitting at 4-0 right now, I would say, okay, Eli Holstein, he's struggling, he's making mistakes, but you can keep riding with it. Let him work some of these things out, and maybe it'll emerge, and you can give it time. Like the West Virginia game, Javon McIntyre makes the tackle for a safety. Pitt ends up winning by 2. It's not exciting. Nobody feels good about it, but at least you got out of that with a win. His game against, Louisville, if you just change one thing, Caleb Junko doesn't drop the punt, or Kenny Johnson doesn't let the punt hit him on that situation. You turn over, you change one of those outcomes. Maybe Pitt wins that game, and maybe they're 4-0, and Eli Holstein still has roughly the same stat line. It doesn't look good. It's the interceptions are concerning. The goal line picks are bad, but okay, you're still 4-0. Like you've got a little space here. You got some breathing room that you can let him continue working these things out. But because you blew these last 2 games, I'm not sure you've got the time to let him keep working it out. And it's unfortunate because, like I said, I think there is a good quarterback in there. I just don't know if you can wait to find out. I don't know if you've got the time, if you can afford to let him keep making these mistakes on the field. There's no guarantee that Mason Heinchel's going to be better, or that Cole Gonzalez would be better, or anything like that, but it seems like I just don't know if you can keep going at this rate. But lest we put everything on Eli Holstein, it's not all on Eli Holstein. Cade Bell's got some things he's got to figure out too. And this, both of these areas are areas where Pat Narduzzi is, I keep talking about, got to make a decision. You're going to have to make a decision on this. You're going to have to figure out what you're doing here. Pat Narduzzi needs to be sitting down. He needs to have sat down all of the last weekend, right? Basically since 4:30, 5 o'clock on Saturday evening, all through the rest of the night, all day yesterday, and into this morning, thinking about what are we going to do? And he needs to assert himself. The offense isn't working. They had, in the second half against Louisville on Saturday, 10 plays that gained positive yardage. Not 10 explosive plays, not even 10 plays that gained more than 5 yards. Like, just positive yardage. They had 10 plays. They only ran 22 plays in the second half because they kept going 3 and out and throwing interceptions. But out of 22 plays, only 10 gained positive yardage. Like, this is new levels of futility with this offense. And if I'm Pat Narduzzi and I've got an offense that is struggling to even get positive yardage, and I've got a quarterback who's throwing interceptions in the red zone and in the end zone 3 out of 5 games so far, I can't sit back and watch this happen. I can't sit back and allow this without stepping in and saying, guys, figure this out. We need to figure this and this and this out. In 2020, and this is like a famous story that we've talked about many times. I think Narduzzi's even said it. You know, after the Notre Dame game, when things were really falling apart, and that was a particular low for the program, for the Narduzzi era. Narduzzi, you know, they had an off week after the Notre Dame game, and Narduzzi basically, you know, circled the wagons on the offensive staff and said, I want every piece of information we've got. I want to know what we're doing, what our tendencies are, you know, what's working, what's not working, what it looks like. I want to see everything. And like, they got better after that week. I don't know if it was entirely because Pat Narduzzi, you know, his impact on the offense or whatever, but as a head coach, at some point you need to step in. And I know Narduzzi wants to be the CEO. He wants to let the coordinators be the head coach of their, you know, the offense or the defense and all that. Like, that's great, but time's up for that. Like, that time is over. Now the head coach needs to step in and assert himself. And I would not be worried about stepping on people's toes. I would not be worried about making this coordinator or that coordinator feel uncomfortable. He needs to be on their asses. Pardon my French. On the Morning Pitt, we try to keep it clean, but that's the reality of it. Okay? Pat Narduzzi needs to be a nightmare for Cade Bell and for Randy Bates this week, to be honest with you. Because I think both sides have some major issues. The biggest one is on offense, for sure. But he needs to be a nightmare for those guys. Because just like I don't know if you have the time to let Eli Holstein figure these things out, I also don't know if you have the time to let Cade Bell figure these things out. I don't. Whatever pressure is appropriate, you know, like there's real life pressure in life. You know, life and death type of stuff, protect your family type of things. Like, we're just talking about football games here. Okay, so everything we're talking about is relative. We're not going to pretend like this is, you know, you have to save the hostages or something like that. Or defuse a bomb, or, you know, fight a fire, or, you know, perform brain surgery or something. But whatever pressure is sort of acceptable to have for a football team and a football coach and a football program, whatever pressure is acceptable to apply in any given football game, that pressure is on Pitt now. And they need to act as if it is. Like, you know, pressure can either burst pipes or form diamonds. I mean, you need to find out if you're either going to burst pipes or form diamonds. And I think you need to act with a certain sense of pressure and a certain sense of urgency. And you need to light a fire under everyone in that building. Because what's happening right now is a program that potentially could be teetering on the brink. I mean, realistically. And it's not just because they've lost 2 games in a row. It's not just because their offense is bad. I mean, we talked a lot on the post-game show about just the disorganization and, you know, just what is going on. You look like you don't have a clue what's happening out here with some of the timeouts and punt situations and all this kind of thing. And, like, get it together. You need to get it together. There has never been more pressure on this coach and this program in the last 11 years than there is right now. And these next 8 games, and it's probably fewer than that, because if it keeps up like this, it might seal the fate right off the bat. But these last 8 games are about as big as any stretch in Narduzzi's time at Pitt, I think, from my perspective. Like, I wasn't on the phone with Alan Green before I started recording this. Alan Green could walk in the room right now and be like, "Shut up, you're an idiot. What are you talking about? Narduzzi's here for 3 more years." But it sure feels to me like this is a crucial time. And Narduzzi has to assert himself. He has to. Because it's on him. He's ultimately the one who's accountable for everything that happens in this program. And so he needs to start acting in every area of this program. This is a huge week. This is a crucial week for Pitt football, for Pat Narduzzi, for Cade Bell, for Eli Holstein, maybe. This is a crucial week. And that game against Boston College on Saturday, I don't know if there are going to be any fans there, but anybody paying attention to it, they know there's going to be a lot riding on it. That wasn't many thoughts on Saturday's game at all. Why am I calling this Monday Thoughts on Saturday's game? But I guess we'll just go with it because, hey, branding is important, everything like that. All right, listen, make sure you like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Even when Pitt loses, we keep doing Morning Pitt videos every day of the week, Monday through Friday. Our weekly live show every Wednesday night. We'll have a post-game show after the Boston College game on Saturday. And all of those things right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So make sure you like this video and subscribe. And I think that's about it. Oh, and check out Panther-Lair.com because we'll have a lot of coverage throughout the week. Pitt football and recruiting and basketball and volleyball and all those different things right here, right there at Panther-Lair.com. So like and subscribe, and we will catch up with you tomorrow for the Morning Pit right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.